Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dynasty Gambit, where we, of course, break down your Dynasty rosters and discuss news and notes from around the league that impact you in every facet of fantasy football, Dynasty or redraft, best ball. You call it your one-day games, DFS. We talk about it all on this show. Of course, as always, we have SenraSays, our Canadian man, who is actually playing, speaking of DFS, in a CFL league. And we, of course, have the Doc from New Jersey, the TFS Doc. You can find him on Tinder. And, of course, Kyle Senra, you can find him on SenraSays. I will not forget to, of course, introduce myself this time. I think it's the first time in 4 shows, I think.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I always forget to introduce myself. I am Hamid Sandu, your co-host, FF Junkie 85 on Twitter. Guys, it's finally football, man. We will not. I can't help. I just can't help smiling right now, man. We will finally not have. We will now, moving forward, there will be no missed weeks up until February for football. How exciting is this, man? I'm so pumped.
We hope there'll be no missed weeks. Cole Beasley, we're looking at you. Don't ruin this for us.
Kirk Cousins, another one.
Kirk Cousins. But yeah, I mean, well, like you mentioned, CFL's kicking off tonight. The NFL preseason's kicking. They're both happening on the same night. I know what Hamid and I will both be watching after the show. Definitely be 2 different things from each other. So, but yeah, CFL DFS. I'm heavy into. Look on going for 2. I just released an article for week 1. Going to be a weekly thing even through the NFL season. So look for that midweek. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. Cool.
Michael Heath from Facebook. So glad Facebook football is back, even though we have to watch the Cowboys. Michael, my man, you must be either a Giant. I'm hoping you're a Giants fan because I am a huge Giants fan. So I'm really hoping that's a stab from a Giant fan. So good for you, my man. Even if you're not a Giants fan, we both hate the Cowboys, so that's good enough for me. Okay, so hey guys,
that could literally be any team. Everybody hates the Cowboys. Sorry, Cowboys.
That's why Hamid's such a great host. He finds a way to connect with the audience no matter what.
So hey, I try to stay humble, and he lives in Tampa. So if you're in Tampa, are you a Bucs fan, Michael? You've got to be a Bucs fan then, right? I mean, unless you were born and raised in the Northeast and just have, well, I know Tampa is Northeast too, I guess. So, but hey, guys, let's talk. Oh, that's Southeast. That's Southeast.
Like Northeast compared to what? The equator?
Yeah, I know, right? All right, guys. So there's a lot.
I mean, technically to Miami, so.
Technically, that's true too. But hey, guys, there's a lot to get to today. Oh, Bucs all the way, Michael. All right. Hey, you're a happy guy. You had a great year, man. Going for 2. Hey, we're going for 2.
So yeah,
Bucs are going for 2.
Yeah, football championship and going hopefully to help people with their dynasty championships.
Didn't the Tampa Bay Lightning also win?
Yeah, didn't they win the Stanley Cup?
The Stanley Cup? I mean, Michael's living the dream right now.
Back to back.
The Tom Brady effect. The Tom Brady effect is real.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Either, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Tampa Bay Rays made the final World Series, right?
No, they're leading the division, so who knows? But
last year.
Baseball?
But last year they made the World Series, right? Yeah, I believe they did.
That's true. Doc is the baseball guy, so I guess he's the guy to ask.
Yeah, I will never question the Doc when it comes to baseball. He is single-handedly saving me in my fantasy baseball league because I don't know a lick of baseball, but this guy's always available 24/7 for me, and he's always there to help. And he's actually taking the time to dissect my roster. What we're gonna do today, he's done for me already once my baseball league. So the Doc is always helpful. He's very knowledgeable. Find him on goingfor2.com as well. Reach out to him on Twitter as well for any fantasy baseball questions or even football questions you have, or of course any medical issues you want to discuss. Speaking of medical issue, guys, let's jump right into it. Man, the Colts can't catch a break, can they? It's Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson both. So this injury is not only rare, but it happened to happen to 2 guys, the exact same injury, the exact same surgery, the exact same timeline.
So they say. But either way, it's a pretty freaky coincidence, that's for sure.
That is definitely. I try to find the stat because I love my stats. Trying to see the stat how often this injury happens. I couldn't find anything on it, of course. But Doc, maybe you can help us with that. But so, Kyle, I'll start with you real quick before we get to Doc about the injury, because I know we've talked about this injury a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit further more from an offensive lineman perspective more than a quarterback. But Kyle, to you, from a dynasty perspective, now of course these guys will be back. So in redraft, of course, is a big impact. But in dynasty, they'll be back. Things will hit the norm. But from a dynasty standpoint, how concerned are you about Carson Wentz being able to stay healthy and on the field for this Colts team to help with Jonathan Taylor's value to keep it where it is? I personally am pretty low on him. We've talked about that, but Kyle, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, that's the thing. I don't see it being much about Wentz. I think it's like if there's any drop in value for Taylor, for me, redraft or dynasty, it's all from the Quentin Nelson injury. I mean, Wentz wasn't that great last year, so I don't know that he was uber efficient to where his quarterback play was going to elevate Taylor. I think to me, Taylor was a top 5 back because of the volume in the offensive line. He's probably still going to get the volume. Now that offensive line's a big question with their biggest really Quentin Nelson. That's the rock, the anchor of that line, out for potentially a significant of the season. That's going to hurt certainly from a redraft perspective. But yeah, so I'll have Taylor as my dynasty RB2. I'm going to drop him more in redraft. I think anywhere from the 6 to 8 range. I have a hard time going anywhere lower than RB8 for me in redraft for Taylor, and that might, I don't know, maybe I'm still just too high on him. But I still have him at RB2, and I'm going to keep him there again. Like
RB2 in dynasty.
It's where it's been all off really. So there was considered, like, I think Cook's at 3. That'd be maybe the only guy I'd consider moving him lower. So like at the absolute lowest, he'll finish as RB going into the season for me. But I still think I'm going to keep him ahead of Cook.
I actually had Jonathan Taylor in my dynasty rankings as my RB9. I have him right ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and right behind Joe Mixon.
Wow.
Yeah, speaking of Joe Mixon, of course,
to be honest, that's my takeaway there. That's high on Mixon.
That's high on Mixon. Yeah, I might be a little bullish on Mixon, but I trust the offense. Given the young nucleus of weapons around for the Bengals, if the only question of Mixon is, can the guy just stay healthy for a change? It'd be really nice to play all 6.
No.
Come on, Doc.
I mean, weapons aside, that offensive line really isn't great. Like that's why, like I don't. I mean, expectations will catch more passes than Jonathan Taylor, and that'd be like the reason to have him ahead of Taylor. But like even with Quentin Nelson gone, I kind of like this Colts offensive line a little more than that Bengals unit that's kind of recovering from injuries and unproven players. So I think that's we'll see though. Could come around and get the volume to make it worth it for sure.
He's always got the potential. It's just putting it all together.
Doc, from an injury standpoint, can you give a little bit insight how players actually use their, like, the part that's actually hurt? Can you explain a little bit how that comes into play from a football standpoint, or even in our daily lives?
Well, I can try. So I guess the question is, I did a little research on this, and I've heard some varying things as far as what actually was injured. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I heard that it was, at least it was speculated that it was these bones called the sesamoid bones in the foot. Is that what you heard, or did you hear something different about Wentz and Quentin Nelson?
No, that sounds about right. I mean, I can just take a look really quick here.
Because as far as I could tell, they didn't actually disclose what. All they said was it was an old injury, a bone broke, was stuck in the soft tissues and broke loose and was causing some issues for him, and they went in and kind of took it out and repaired the soft tissues. That's my understanding of it. Which
yeah,
go ahead.
No, I'm saying there's no clear detail.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Then we're on the same page. Then we could talk about it. So first and foremost, with Wentz, Nelson, anybody else, whenever in fantasy football, I'll give you this little takeaway. Whenever somebody mentions a foot injury, the first red flag that needs to come up for you is something called a Liz Frank injury, which we talked about on the Monday Night War Room. Like, we definitely know, we've heard of it before it happens. It's a ligament in the mid portion of the foot, which kind of holds the whole foot together. So when that gets injured, especially if it's torn, it really is a devastating injury. Usually it requires surgery and can knock the player out for most, if not all, of the year. So when they said that Wentz had injured his foot late last week, and he was going for further evaluation. The first thing I thought of when it wasn't like he came back and he was still having pain the next day, I'm like, oh God, don't be a Liz Frank injury. So they ruled that out, and they said it's not a Liz Frank injury. So I'm like, okay, cool. Now we can actually see what's going on. So we're lucky that it's not a Liz Frank. It's unclear which bones are actually involved. Maybe it is the sesamoids. It's not really that important because the surgery's done. The surgery went well. And now, like, let's live in the solution. Like, what's the ramifications? What's going to be the issue? The 5 to 12 week range that they gave us is a little bit strange. Usually the range isn't that wide for something like this. I guess it's a question of pain tolerance and, rehab and things like that. So I'm sure you guys want to know, like, where I come down as far as, like, is it going to be 5 weeks, in which case he's probably ready for the early part of the season, or is it going to be 12 weeks, in which case he could be out until November? I kind of thought about it, and I'm going to split the difference. And my projection is probably early to mid-October is a reasonable estimate for when we can expect both of these guys back. The good news is that if it's this type of surgery and the rehab goes okay, you don't have to be 100% in order to play. They can kind of numb you up or put extra padding in your shoe and use orthotics and other means to kind of get you over the hump and get you out there so you can play. So it's not something where if he was a receiver or a running back or something like that, where there's a lot of cutting and fast movements and things like that, it might be a little bit of a different story and it might be on the longer end of the timeline. So that's kind of where I think we are with it. To your point, Kyle and Hamid, about his ranking before, it doesn't really change things that much because Wentz was kind of hanging around, at least in the redraft area for this year, at kind of replacement level for single quarterback leagues. So he was kind of like a low-end QB2 with maybe upside for a little bit more. So he kind of still is. So it's like your replacement player that you could put in for him theoretically should be about as good as you would expect for him. The question is, how much is it going to affect Jonathan Taylor? So I just want to bring this out because I know, Kyle, you mentioned it, and a lot of people have been talking about how Quentin Nelson is kind of one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and he's kind of the linchpin. And I just want to raise this question because isn't the rest of that offensive line still pretty good? I get the idea of linchpin and things like that, but isn't the whole line? I don't know that much about it. You guys know more than I do. Aren't they still pretty good?
The big thing was Anthony Costanzo, the left tackle, retired. Now they did sign Eric Fisher in the offseason, but he's coming off, I believe, an Achilles injury. Yes. So I know we talked last 2 weeks with Cam Akers. So I think he was projected to be so I think right now it looks like that left side might not be as secure as they were hoping. But yeah, 5-man unit, like I think the rest of the center and the right side of that line's intact. So it's depending really on the left side until Nelson gets there. So yeah, I don't think like Nelson being gone doesn't mean all hope's lost, but it definitely I think it hurts a little bit because it's probably where he would natural income behind Nelson as the first option is probably often for Taylor in normal circumstances. So that's my thing.
I think that.
My now I think is like Carson Wentz in Dynasty. Like, how are we viewing him? Because I almost think in single quarterback league, he's not unrosterable, but he's getting on the point where if you do a single quarterback start Dynasty league right now, I'm not sure that Carson Wentz gets drafted.
He might.
I don't think I would want to.
And a single QB,
my question is that recency bias? Is that an overreaction? Is that recency bias? Because I know you've talked about how valuable quarterbacks can be and things like that, which they certainly can be. Before we get to that, though, this is what I wanted to call out.
Sure.
When we think about how much the offensive line is going to affect Jonathan Taylor and how talented he is and how high everybody was on him, this really feels like an overreaction to dropping him down really far because let's talk about Najee Harris. His entire offensive line sucks shit. I mean, and that's putting it mildly. And nobody cares. Like, they're still drafting him as if he's going to be like the football messiah. And it's like, and now people are like dropping Jonathan Taylor below him in some rankings, especially for this year. And that really feels like a strong overreaction for what may end up being like these guys are out for 3 or 4 weeks and then it's not that big of a deal.
Kyle, to that, where do you have Najee Harris ranked?
In Dynasty, I think I have him RB 10.
I have him at RB 16. I have him RB 16 currently, right ahead of Antonio Gibson and behind DeAndre Swift.
Okay,
I'm pretty high on Swift too, because I think I've got Swift at Dynasty 6 or 7. It's back and forth between him and Kamara. I think I've got him 6 ahead of Kamara at 7 in Dynasty, whereas in redraft it'll be Kamara ahead of Swift. I think I've kind of crisscrossed between the two. Like, I've got Taylor still ahead of both. In every format, I'm taking Taylor ahead of Bark 100% of the time. Like, I think that's still Doc, like I'm not going that low on Taylor yet.
So Doc, I was going to
Taylor's still ahead of Harris.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right. So Doc, I was going to actually ask this question of comparison. You just brought it up. So give me this answer, both of you. And Doc, we'll start with you since you brought the idea up. Okay. Najee Harris or Jonathan Taylor in a vacuum? Who are you taking right now?
Jonathan Taylor.
In Dynasty, still Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah.
And Kyle, you're still taking Jonathan Taylor over Najee Harris in Dynasty? Is that gap significant, or do you think they're pretty close?
It's moderate.
About 8 spots in my ranking.
Yeah,
I think I'd have them in different tiers. So yeah, a size like they'll be in, like, Taylor's probably on, Harris is a big tier 2.
Okay.
Oh, that tier is probably about 10 deep. So yeah.
Doc, are you on the same boat?
Yeah, and I just want to mention real quick, it's like, football, it's a long season, and it's like you want to be stronger towards the end of the season, like playoffs and going down the stretch and into the playoffs. This really feels like it's shaping up like, everybody was so high on JT, and it feels like it's almost shaping up like last year, where his hype was insane, and he was getting drafted really high, and he didn't really perform that well, and then people were kind of out on him. He had a couple of good games and people were out on him. And then down the stretch, he just turned it on and was a complete beast and really helped a lot of people do well. This spot kind of feels like it's like deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra would say. It could happen again. So this whole thing with Nelson and Wentz, like, it could end up being significant, but it could also not. It could be 3 or 4 weeks. He gets off to a little bit of a slow start. He may even be a target after a month if he kind of languishes a little bit and people get even more out on him, where his acquisition cost may be really low and he could really pop at the end of the year. So I just want to call that out as well.
The other thing too is, if he's on the field enough, and like, let's say that they're struggling to run, does that mean more targets for Taylor? And suddenly we're wondering, okay, is he going to struggle to reach 40 receptions? Does this maybe turn to something where he could get maybe close to 50? Pretty easily, because they're just throwing it to him.
First few games, like, he could be like a safety valve. Again, Nyheim Hines is going to be there. Marlon Mack may or may not be involved, but I agree with that. That's a really good point. Like, he could get more receptions out of this just because.
I saw one person say they were upgrading him after the Wentz injury. I wouldn't upgrade him after the Nelson injury, but I could upgrade him. I just don't think, like, again, like, I didn't downgrade him after the Wentz injury. Wentz really struggled last year. I don't think that quarterback play was going to be all that great. If there's any downgrade, it's because of Nelson being gone. I think that's
so. Hines had 63 receptions last year, and Jonathan Taylor had 36. I find that a little difficult. I don't see a path to where Jonathan Taylor has 50 receptions. Even though we had the extra game, I don't see how Jonathan Taylor hits that. With Marlon Mack, I think so far Marlon Mack seems to be pretty decent. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he's great, but he's looking pretty healthy in training camp. And that's what we're looking for here right now until we see them on the field.
Yeah, it's a long season. You got to make it.
It is a long season.
On a repaired Achilles,
Right. But he's not going to get significant workload. He's not going to. I don't think he sees as much workload as Gus Edwards does this year. But the point I'm going to make is, I don't see a path, at least in my opinion, that Jonathan Taylor has 50 receptions. Whereas
I'm not so sure about that. I think that it's possible. I wouldn't discount it out of hand.
40 seems likely. Okay. I'll be honest, but yeah,
I agree with that.
I think get to 40.
I see a path to 40 or 42 receptions. Michael Heath is asking Dobbs, how much playing time does he get? So reports are that Rudolph is getting the first half, or is it no? It's Haskins getting the first half, Rudolph getting the second half. I think Dobbs maybe sees a half a quarter, if that. It comes down to how Rudolph is doing. That's what I think. Guys, what are your take on it? Kyle, we'll start with you.
I don't know. I mean, if they're going to say, hey, we're going to put Rudolph in for one quarter, half for the other quarter, maybe Dobbs gets his own quarter in the second half. I mean, like, who's the fourth? Because I mean, that, like, it'll be probably Dobbs and that other quarterback playing a lot of the second half. I don't know. Like, I'm not really that connected. Like, I don't know, but like, I could see them. I mean, I guess them in the system, they know who he is, so they probably do want to see more of Haskins. So maybe, Rudolph plays the first quarter, they play him in the second quarter, and then they bring him out again after halftime just to see how does he adjust halftime thing. They haven't really seen him in that scenario, and then maybe Dobbs gets more the fourth quarter. But I'm getting at least a quarter of play, if not more.
Najee Harris is going to play, though, so that's going to be exciting to see. We get to see our first look at him.
That'd be pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Harris is
probably what, the first series?
Maybe a couple of series here and there. That's about it. He is expected to play all four preseasons. Najee Harris. Okay, so moving on to our next topic of discussion.
Before we move on, real quick, I just want to throw this out there. What if Nyheim Hines gets hurt? Then does Jonathan Taylor get 50 receptions?
I mean, then he's a lock to get 50 receptions.
Okay, he gets hurt. Not impossible. Just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
So, okay.
Calling injuries.
Calling in injuries.
This is what I do, gentlemen. This is what I do.
All right. So moving on to our next topic of discussion here is about our boy Kenny Galladay. This is his third documented hamstring injury. He's had 2 hamstring strains, if I recall, back in 2017 and 2019, and now he has another injury to his hamstring, and he's expected to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. Soft tissue injuries, Doc. Those are injuries that tend to be reoccurring. Now, is that a false narrative, or is there truth to that?
Well, I mean, I think it's true to the extent that they happen, right? Like it's football. People, these are big, strong guys. They pull muscles. They injure tendons and ligaments and things like that. It's just kind of the nature of the sport. Depending on how bad the injury is previously, you can develop scar tissue, and has less elasticity than muscle does, so it tears easier. So there is a component of, kind of once you injure an area, it never really gets to be as strong as it was before. But I think it's more that these things occur because the nature of the sport itself. There's a lot of explosive movements that are required, a lot of fast twitch cuts and accelerations and stopping and all the stuff that we love to see and that these guys can do really well. So it kind of is a pre setup for that type of thing. I'm working nights this week, so I went to sleep and they were talking about how they were optimistic that this wasn't, quote unquote, wasn't serious, which is always a red flag for me. As like, serious compared to what? And then I wake up and I see that it sounds like it's a grade 1 strain and 2 to 3 weeks, which is pretty much what I was thinking. They're probably going to take it slow with him to prevent a re-injury or reoccurrence. You want to let these type of things heal when you have the time. If it was during the regular season, they probably would push it, and it might be something that would be more likely to occur. But here's what I want to ask you guys, and this is going to come up again. But if he was a veteran and he had multiple years on this team and he wasn't new to the team, I would be less concerned. I'm not so much concerned about the injury or it recurring. I think he'll be ready for the regular season. But he could still start slow because this is his first year with the team. Like, he needs these reps. It's not like he's been there for 10 years. If it happened to Mike Evans or something, I wouldn't be concerned at all. I'm like, he's got Tom Brady back there. When he gets back, he'll be fine. He knows the playbook. He knows he's going to get the ball. I'm not worried about this at all. He'll be ready. With Kenny Galladay, I'm worried. He needs these reps, and he doesn't have Tom Brady back there. He's got Danny Dimes. And the whole Giants offense seems to be in somewhat of disarray. So I feel like these reps are important. I feel like he could start slow as a result of this. Maybe he's a bye after that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
He's used to Matt Stafford too, right? Like, he's got to adjust to Daniel Jones because, I mean, let's be honest, like, he's gotten better quarterback play in Detroit, which is weird to say, but like, I mean, Stafford's been pretty great. So, like, I guess it's not that weird to say if you know it's Matthew Stafford, right? So, like, that's going to be an adjustment. Just that, and yeah, like you said, like learning a new offense. Because, I mean, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, they've been in this offense. They've played with Daniel Jones, right? So they've kind of got an inside track already.
Saquon too. Like, when he comes back, he's been there. Like, when he's ready to go, he's a veteran for that offense.
Darius Toney has also been hurt too, the rookie, right? So he's like, that would also apply, right? He's new. He really needed these reps more than this, right?
Darius Toney, that pick is poison.
Not only has he started off with an injury, but he's also been on the COVID list. So he's off to a really slow. Like, he's off, like, you could not get off to a worse start with training camp than what Darius Toney has. 100%. So now barring, so if Galladay's out 2 or 3 weeks, we're expecting he will start week 1. But to Doc's point, they may ease him in at least the first couple of weeks, which I think benefits Sterling Shepard the most. Everybody. With Kadarius Toney expected to be on the outside while Galladay is out. This is just my guess. And then Darius Slayton, of course, the second receiver on the outside. I can expect Sterling Shepard to man the slot significantly. Yeah, I think he has about 26% of the offense. His routes were run from the slot, which is surprisingly low, in my opinion. I think Sterling Shepard should be utilized even more. He should be used more than that because that's where he excels. So I do think Sterling Shepard is someone who will benefit with Galladay either being out longer or starting out a little bit slow to start the season.
I don't argue that he'll benefit and that he might get more targets. Sterling Shepard to me was probably going to be number 2 on this team, assuming Galladay was healthy for a whole season. Like if Galladay misses times, it's close enough.
Barkley,
close enough that he, maybe Barkley, maybe even Evan Ingram. Really, like it's not a locked in, but I think really the biggest beneficiary to Galladay being out to me is Darius. Like it's like the similar body type, the similar type of perimeter targets. I feel like Sterling Shepard. If you, Hamid, talked about Sterling Shepard, if he plays more in the slot, I feel like that role's there regardless of if Galladay is there or not. Like, he in the slot, those targets are always going to be there. It's Slayton who might not see as many perimeter targets if Galladay's on the field. He becomes a massive, maybe even red zone weapon, but certainly is their go-to guy as well, not Galladay, like if Galladay's out. So I think Slayton's probably the biggest bump to me if Galladay's out.
All right, well, it's going to be interesting to see how Galladay progresses throughout the offseason. Hopefully he's ready for my Giants. I like to see my Giants win a little for a change. But I don't have faith in Daniel Jones. We all know that. It's well documented. I voice it all the time. So with that, fellas, let's jump right into discussing this Dynasty roster today.
Well, one more thing we could throw out there. I don't know if you want to address this because it's not the Giants, but you want to talk about Devonta Smith or no?
We can touch on him, Devonta Smith. And
big enough news, probably should, yeah.
No, we already kind of laid it out a little bit with Kenny Galladay. It's kind of like a cut and paste type of thing, but we're just throw him in there. So the only difference is instead of it being a hamstring, this is a knee ligament sprain. Same type of time frame, 2 to 4 weeks. Could, re-injure it if not given enough time to heal. So same thing. I think they're going to take it easy on him to prevent re-injury. But again, this is a problem. If he was a vet, it wouldn't matter. But he's a rookie and he needs these reps. He needs to build a rapport with his quarterback. I was already concerned, and I don't want to get into the whole BMI thing or anything, but he is not a large man. And some of these cornerbacks and safeties in the NFL are, and I'm a little concerned about how his game is going to transition. I know that there have been people that have been successful in the past. This is just another brick in the wall of him potentially starting slow as he adjusts to the NFL. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying he's not super talented, because he is. And I'm not saying that he can't end up being the alpha for this team given enough time. But, we kind of had this preconceived notion, and he's being drafted as if, especially in, redraft leagues and things like that, that he's just going to hit the ground running. And I really don't see that happening. So, I have a lot of concern about this. I don't think it's going to be a long-term concern. I think it's just going to be for, the first half of this year. But same deal. I think he could start slow, and this whole offense could be even worse. And the Eagles could find themselves in a position after 5 or 6 weeks where they're already thinking about, we've talked about it many times, like Jaylen Hurts is on the outs, and they're already thinking about what to do with all those first-round draft picks next year because they're 1-5 or something like that.
Well, to your point, Talk, if there was a team that starts slow on, it is the Eagles, because who do they have after Devonta Smith, man?
Yeah.
I
like Greg Ward as
the
much
tight
as
ends, right?
Provided the next guy doesn't really like Greg Ward that much. But
Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward.
Hey, maybe this is the resurgence of Zach Ertz. Maybe Zach Ertz is back
to be fair, it does make the Giants' weapons look better, Hamid, to like the team you cheer for is credit, right? Like,
even with Devonta
confident with those guys.
Even with Devonta Smith, let's say even healthy, I like the Giants' weapons on paper better. I 100% agree with that. I think the talent is by far significantly better. But just I don't care. The quarterback play. I hate Daniel Jones. I hate the pick. I hate it then. I still hate it. They should have never drafted him. They should have taken Josh Allen, but nope. We don't want to address the defense. Let's just take, with our 4th overall pick, this quarterback who sucks. Or was a 6th overall pick? It was a 6th overall pick. But I don't care. It doesn't matter. They should have taken
Josh Allen instead of it was the Barkley year, right?
No, not the Barkley year. No. Josh Allen, the defensive end.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
They should have taken him.
Sorry.
But that's
my
irrelevant
mistake.
now. So it doesn't matter.
Fighting team.
Giants are a fighting
Michael,
team.
That's right.
Yeah. Michael's chiming in there. Or that's sorry, that's Gerson.
That's
my bad,
That's
Gerson.
the G-man.
It's Shane Falco.
Sorry.
Giants are a fighting team. That's right,
yeah.
G. Just like me. I'm angry about that still. But anyway, let's stay focused here. Let's discuss this team now, shall we?
Okay.
Unfortunately, we do not have the picks for this team, but let's start right off the bat with the quarterback position, fellas. This is a single quarterback PPR league, and the quarterback scoring is standard with 6 points per touchdown passing for the QB. So this team has Carson Wentz. Well, we just spoke about him quite significantly.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, Tua, and Cam Newton. Kyle, I'll start with you on this. Well, give me your thoughts about this squad. He has some decent quarterbacks. I wouldn't say they're great, but it's not a bad group to have in Dynasty.
But they're all ground. They're like you've got 5 guys that could all start week 1 this year, and none of them could be starters in 2022. Like, okay, Tua, that's probably a real big stretch. Even if Vaughn, he's probably starting somewhere, and that's probably the only piece I'm really solid on. It's a single quarterback league, so I don't think any of these guys are really going to be worth much. But if you could, for Carson Newton, if you can trade them for anything, I'm doing that now. Probably Carr to me, Excel. Just what happens if he gets benched mid-season? What's his next opportunity look like on the free agent market? Is someone giving him another starting job, or is he always going to be just always competing and maybe always the veteran mentors teams bring in rookies, right? So this might be as much as value. I'd look to try and sell Derek Carr because ultimately, this team looks strong. I think I'd want to upgrade a quarterback at some point, but I don't think you're ever doing that by trading away. I think you got to trade them away for picks and then use those picks to buy a better quarterback. I think that's kind of how I'd go about it. And Tua's probably the safe option. Not super high ups. He's probably going to be starting most of the season. So he's the guy you probably keep and build around. And again, I'm trying to sell on any of these other guys, Winston, Newton, because it might never ever week 1 starter on a team ever again.
Doc, what's your take on these quarterbacks? Now, of course, I do share similar sentiments to Kyle, but what's your take on these QBs?
I'm glad you guys are together on this because I'm going to go in the completely different direction.
Of course you're going to. Of course you're going to.
Give me the dice, baby. Let me roll the dice with these quarterbacks. I like it. I think you got a decent floor with Carr. I get it. Going forward, next year, the year after that, maybe there's going to be some questions, but this could all work out. Tua could have a great year. Cam Newton could, have a resurgence in New England. Even though they drafted a quarterback 1 overall, Jameis Winston could still win the quarterback job in New Orleans. Carson Wentz could come back and be just fine in the second half of the year. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and it could all go bust. But you got 4 or 5 tickets in the lottery, So it's you only really need in a single quarterback league. You only need one of them to hit, and you're going to be okay. So I don't know which one is going to be okay, but I think one of them is going to be okay. At least for this year and for next year. And then you take it after that. Whatever the pick situation is, maybe you want to get a young quarterback in there if you haven't traded away all your picks and things like that. So I'm fine with letting this play out. You guys know how I am. It's I don't think too far down the road. Life's too short. You got to kind of deal with what you got in front of you because as we saw with Wentz, injuries, a guy rolls out of the pocket, he breaks a bone in his foot, and then he's out for 2 months. It's with football, it's always a big question mark. You can't for me, and for whoever's team this is, and for whoever's out there listening, I get it. You want that security. We all want that security. We all want that insurance policy. Life doesn't work that way. Football doesn't work that way. Sometimes you got to take with what's in front of you.
You know what's funny though? Carson Wentz, Derek Carr and Cam Newton At both, no, see, I think it's Cam Newton and Jameis Winston both have finished top 3 at their position in fantasy in the past. So he does have skilled players. Unfortunately, the situation does not dictate that, to Kyle's point, that they're going to be the starters even during this year. Are they going to finish the season as a starter? Who knows? I don't have that. True. I can't take. But luckily for this guy, it's not a super flex league. It's a 1 QB.
Oh yeah. Super flex league. Sorry.
I do think Derek Carr is matchup dependent. You can start him over. If I'm this guy, Tua's your starter, and Derek Carr is the upside play based upon matchups.
Yeah.
To start off,
exactly.
He'll be
the wily veteran, and Winston's the wild card, and Carson Wentz is hurt, and we'll see what we get from him. But it's like I like living in the uncertainty. I like living on the edge. So
because I do view Tua, Hamid, like your comment about Carr, right? Like matchups to play them in, you just got to mind those matchups. I feel like the same way about Tua, right? So you both of those, and if they both have bad matchups, then if Winston or Newton are starting, that's when they can be. But yeah, so I think they're safe for bye weeks and kind of bad matchups for either Tua or Carr while you're waiting for Wentz to get back. But like, to Doc's credit, like this was pretty good. You don't want to compromise that chasing the quarterback in a single quarterback league. Like I'm looking to improve it, but if not significant cost and you're downgrading other positions.
And that's perfect. So year-long league. Let's say out of the gate, are you going with 2 on the beginning to start the season, and then from there play it by ear?
I'm playing it. I think I'm right off the bat. Carr, Tua. Who's the better matchup week 1? If Winston gets the start, they're hosting the Packers week 1. Like, if he's starting, he's gonna have to air it out, right, to keep up with Aaron Rodgers. Packers fan here, obviously saying that, but like I feel like the Packers are going to be heavy favorites in that game, and so in the dome in New Orleans, good environment maybe to throw, and he'll probably throw some picks, but like that would be a matchup if we get word that Winston's the starter. It also seems like Newton's going to get more starts early in the season, so like I could lay the matchup between all 4 of those, and I say do that every week, right? Like if you're committed quarterback room, I think you are playing the matchups every week. I don't think unless Tua like up this year and the weapons around him just allow him to kind of upgrade completely. I think you're playing the matchup every single week.
Also, here's a little nugget for you. Last year, when Cam Newton got hurt, at the time he got hurt, want to take a guess where Cam Newton was amongst all quarterbacks in fantasy last year before he got hurt? I think it was week 4 he got hurt, if I recall.
I want to say he was top 5.
I was going to say QB 8.
Very close. QB 7. He was at QB 7 before he got hurt week 4. So he's not. Yeah, the offense. They started off really well because not only did he get hurt, but then he got COVID. So then he was out an additional 2 weeks, and he was never the same after that. It was all downhill from there. We all know what happened.
Let me put this out there. Credit to Danny Ocean and Losty Mix. They both had Cam Newton. They were talking about the AFC East, and they both had Cam Newton as the comeback player of the year. I was like, that's spicy. What if that happens?
Yeah,
that's really
one of them picked the Patriots to win the Bills.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Is that this year?
They said it last night, or
this was
their show this week.
This was 2 days ago on Tuesdays.
No, speak on this.
Ooh, that's
on the Going
talk about
Live Network, everyone, every Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Another one of the great shows that you could find on Going for Two Live.
That is a hot take and a half.
Spicy.
All right, so let's jump right into the running backs now, guys. His running backs are Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Najee Harris, who we just spoke about, Le'Veon Bell. How is he still relevant? Tevin Coleman, Peyton Barber, Jalen Richard, Tariq Cohen, and Ty Johnson. And Kyle, I'll go ahead and start with you on this. Running backs actually are pretty decent. He has some pretty decent depth. I wouldn't say decent depth, but I think the core of his running backs is actually pretty decent. What are your thoughts on his running backs?
I mean, I think the real line right now in Dynasty is top 24, right? It's a very clear top 24 who those running backs are and who the rest of the league. And he's got 3 guys inside that. I would say I think I've got Jacobs and Sanders both inside the top 20, right? So like to me, he's got 3 top 20 running backs. That's that's a room. Also, just to point out, like Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, it looks like they're going to be like, if it's a 3-way committee with the Jets, those are going to be the 2-3 guys behind Michael Carter, who the rookie looks maybe guy, but expect Coleman and Johnson to both be involved. So I like having that duo. You like that might be one that it's tough to know week to week. But like Tevin Coleman, one thing we've gotten a lot of, especially in San Francisco, not so much in Atlanta, but in San Francisco, a lot of goal line opportunities. If he's got some touchdown upside, like he might be a guy that you can plug in even some flex appeal. So I like having both those Jets running backs. The rest of the running back depth behind this, it's not that great. But I mean, if we'll say 4 solid options between both Jets kind of being one option if you can pick it right. Like that's pretty good. Like if you can upgrade, I'm always looking to move and make trades, upgrade my team better, but like there's no real obvious need on this team right now. You've got a couple guys, like all top running backs are still on their rookie contracts, so like a decently young running back room, so well constructed. I like it. Like you said, Bell can be cut, like just because you've got so many running backs, it's like cut Bell for a higher any other position.
Red zone touches. Tevin Coleman had 32, which is ranked 22nd amongst all running backs in 2019. I'm not counting 2020 because he only played 6 games. But the problem with Tevin Coleman, since even from his Falcons days, efficiency was his problem. That's always been the problem. At least lately, since he's moved on from the Falcons, even when he was on the Falcons, except for barring 1 year, it's been his efficiency. If you look at his efficiency metrics and his numbers, even at the goal line, he's not been very efficient. So I would have a hard time even trusting him as a flex, even going into this year on the Jets roster. I do think Michael Carter does take over that backfield. He won't be a 3-down back, but I do think Michael Carter will be heavily involved with Tevin Coleman sharing the load with Ty Johnson or even Michael Carter. But with that said, Doc, your thoughts on his running backs. Now, of course, we just spoke about QBs and you love the Russian roulette. So what do you think about these running backs, man?
I'm telling you, it's right up my alley. I'm actually surprised, Kyle, because I know you like more depth at the running back position, but I do like he's very top heavy, and I can see where the appeal is. Like all these guys are young, and they're still on their rookie contracts, and they're all top 24 options, like you said. So Jacobs, I think. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? I think he's really being kind of undervalued at this point. I think people were, talked about it before about Kenyon Drake coming in, and I just don't. I think they can both be, on the field at the same time and get some love. Miles Sanders, we'll see, but he may end up being the best weapon in this offense. I'm fine with him there. Najee Harris obviously, has the potential to be a beast. Let's talk about Tevin Coleman a little bit. I like Michael Carter. I like his talent, but I think he could have more value early on than people think. I mean, I think that Carter's going to have a chance to take over the backfield, but it might not come as soon as people think. It might not be until November. He could have more value early because Carter's a rookie and he's familiar with the system and the coaches. Like they brought this guy in for a reason, and I think he's going to get some play. What he does with it, and if he can stay healthy, is a different issue. But I think he's definitely going to get some opportunities, more opportunities than people might like, especially people that are heavily invested in Michael Carter. I just want to throw this out there as a last thing. The guys that are injured, Tariq Cohen is on the PUP. He could come off at any point, but it's looking like the recovery from the ACL is going slower than they might prefer. Yep. So boost to David Montgomery for sure, and boost to my boy Damian Williams as well. Because if something happens to Montgomery, oh, baby, are you going to be glad if you have him on your roster? Because he could end up being the workhorse back there. And the latest thing that just came in also may affect Jacobs a little bit. Jalen Richard has a foot injury. He's out indefinitely. We just talked about this. Foot injury, let's see if you guys are paying attention. What's the thing you're worried about?
Is that like the chance of re-injury, how long it takes, and
what's the structure? We just talked about it half an hour ago.
Frank?
I don't know how much.
Liz Frank?
Yeah, there you go.
Liz Frank.
So could it be a Liz Frank injury? Could he be done for the year? It's possible. So that could have a trickle down effect with the rest of the running backs, them getting more pass catching, opportunities. as well.
Well,
so
the fact that they're saying he's out indefinitely, that's
not
worrisome
great.
itself.
I mean, that's not great. That definitely
That's not great
for me. And like I said, first thing I think about when I hear that is this a Liz Frank? And if it's a Liz Frank, you got to be very, very worried that he's going to be looking at a long-term absence, if not being done for the year already.
So maybe look for like back-end running backs to be like your RB5, RB6 on this team, other than Richard and Cohen and Barber.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Cohen's worth holding on to for the time being. Richard may end up being a cut, very shortly once they kind of work that out. Awesome. And then Le'Veon Bell is, he's still hanging around. I still, think that if he signed somewhere, he could have value. I know Hamid disagrees with me. That's okay.
I sure do.
And then Peyton Barber with Washington football team. If Gibson gets hurt, he could have some flex value too. McKissick's value would go up for sure. But Peyton Barber could be the early down back there, and that offense looks a lot better.
Especially the goal.
Got potential, yeah, and he's done it before.
Yeah, he got a lot. I mean, goal line especially. Like Gibson has some touchdown upside, obviously as the starter there. But I think that goes to Barber. Yeah, upgrade, but I don't think get rid of these guys. Like Bell's the only obvious cut to me. Maybe Richard. But yeah, I would, even though Cohen's dealing with an injury and Barber's a little buried, I would hang on to them because those are that you want is to get more depth at running back. Because
it's a long season. These guys could have value at some point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's the back end of a dynasty roster is year to year.
Yeah.
So before we move on to wide receivers, I want you guys' quick take. Doc, I know you work in tiers. So Kyle, you work in rankings. So Doc, in tiers, where would you have Jacob Sanders and Najee Harris ranked in tiers?
I think they're all kind of in the same tier. They're in that mid RB2 range, which I'm totally fine with.
Kyle, where do you have these three running backs ranked? Josh Jacobs, Sanders. I think we spoke about Harris a bit, but for our listeners who just joined us as well, can you tell us your rankings for these three running backs?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my dynasty rankings right now.
Okay, so while you're doing that real quick.
Like I said, I think it's just from a tier perspective, I know I've got Harris as a tier above, I think. The expected workload all going to him, even the pass catching work, where is with Sanders and Jacobs there. So I've got Harris, I think, in my second tier of running backs for Dynasty, whereas Jacobs are the third tier. So I do have Harris above. In terms of running back rankings, Harris is 10th, like I said earlier. I was right about that. I've got Sanders at 18 and Jacobs at 20.
Okay, so you're about to get really just jolted by this. I have Josh Jacobs ranked 28 in Dynasty amongst all running backs. Wow. And I have Miles Sanders.
I thought I was low at 20.
Wow. Yes, I have Miles Sanders at 25 and Najee Harris at 16.
Why do you have him so low?
That's a good question, because I was talking earlier about the obvious top 24, right? So you're
you got him in RB3 range. Why so low?
So you got Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, Darrell Henderson, all higher than Jacobs?
No, if this was redraft, then I would have Davis ahead of Jacobs. Yes, absolutely. But from a dynasty standpoint, the running backs I have right next to, let's say, Miles Sanders is Trey Sermon, is right above him, and right behind him is Myles Gaskins.
Well, why so low on Jacobs?
So it's if he had the role that he had last year, I'd be significantly higher on him. The fact that they bring
but what? Like, is it because Drake is there? Like, is that scaring you up? Like, what is it?
It's not just that. So let's talk about the last couple of years. This team hasn't had a true, legitimate wide receiver to speak of. I am very bullish on Bryan Edwards more than others are. I think he's the best wide receiver on that team.
He's getting a lot of helium, so you're not alone in that one.
Well, no, I'm going back to last year. I drafted Edwards in every redraft league with my last pick, expecting him to break out, but of course he didn't. I think this year, finally, maybe that had to do with the fact that they didn't have any preseason, so I think this year is the year that he finally breaks out. So I do think it's going to be legitimate work with the wide receivers. They're finally going to take that next step. And then, so that way, Darren Waller is not the only pass catcher there. And this offense can move in other ways other than the running back. I do expect that should improve Derek Carr's efficiency a little bit more, especially with the deep ball. And because the fact that Drake is there, I think the cumulative reason for that, the offense is not going to be elite. It's not going to be top half. I think it's going to be still going to be in the bottom half of the league. I would rank this offense around 22 23 overall in this league. I'll have to see where they finished last year. But that's where I have this offense currently.
You realize it's only an hour-long show, right? Are we getting to it or what?
I know. But that's basically why I'm so low on, because
I don't have an answer. You said Brian Edwards. You said some bullshit about offensive efficiency, but you never actually gave an answer. Why is Jacob so low?
Because in Dynasty, you have to project out not just 1 year, multiple years. And given that,
are you expecting him to be deported? What's going to happen to him?
Well, no, the running backs who are getting deported are like Bryce Love, who's ranked 99 in my rankings. Yeah, okay. So that's if they're getting deported, that's where they are.
Okay,
but that's the reason why.
That's too high on Bryce Love.
Jacobs is going to be mopping up at Alliance Stadium. What's going to happen to him?
I think this offense is going to become much more well-rounded and less dependent, one, on Josh Jacobs, and two, the volume just isn't going to be there for him to return RB2 overall for me, which is why I have him just outside RB2. Can he finish? Yeah, I do have him. I have him as a high RB2. Yeah, that's right. I think the upside with Jacobs is mid RB2. But that's my ranking. That's my take. We can disagree, and that's perfectly fine.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to get the reason. We absolutely disagree. That's not a question. But I just wanted to hear the reasoning behind it. And honestly, you don't need to have a reason. You could just say, "Hey, this is what I feel," and I don't have a great reason for it. I know that's not your bag. You're very data driven, and I respect that. But sometimes you're just like, "Hey, I got a feeling, and I got a feeling this ain't gonna work out." So I respect that. I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying
it's valid.
Well, I'm not saying he's not draftable. I just don't have it as high as others.
I get it. It's just, that's where you're at with him. So most likely you're not going to end up with him on a lot of teams because somebody else is going to, like myself or, lots of other people are going to value him a little bit higher than you do. So that's how you don't end up with people. It's like, hey, I don't hate him. I like him. I just don't like him as much as some other people. So therefore they're going to get him over me. So
it's not about hating players. It's about hating players' cost. And I am worried about the offensive line in Vegas.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the wide receiver. This is where I think this team can really, if they want to make any improvements, I think this is where they can actually make those improvements to this roster. How is Alshon Jeffrey still legitimate? Anyway, so this team has DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Alshon Jeffrey, Jarvis Landry, Rashad Higgins, N'Keal Harry, Darius Slayton. We've talked about Darius Slayton a little bit on the show already. And so, but overall, this is where this team can improve. So, Doc, I'll start with you here. Give us your take about these wide receivers. Do you think this is where he should use some players here to make the improvements he needs to on this roster?
I think it's, he's got the potential to do that. So the way that I kind of think about it is you look at a roster and you're like, do I have any immediate holes right now, or can I kind of get by and see what I got? And I think this team is in a position where they're okay at all the positions. They don't need to make any moves now. Obviously, when bye weeks start hitting, injuries happen, it might be a different story. But just looking at his starting players right now, going out of the gate week one, I think he's in good shape, relatively speaking. And the top four wide receivers that he has, because he flexes, it's a 2-flex start, and he's flexing 2 wide receivers right now.
Yes.
So right now, Najee Harris is on his bench. Which is kind of interesting. So he has a little bit of a cushion there. And we mentioned Tevin Coleman, Darius Slayton, Jarvis Landry. He's got depth. He's got fill-in guys, and his top 4 are pretty good. With Hopkins, Evans, Allen, and Lockett, pretty good to say the least. I mean, he's got some significant wide receiver 1 love there, and Tyler Lockett. He's inconsistent, but he's got potential to have some spike weeks, in a flex position that's pretty nice. And he's got decent depth. I agree. Alshon Jeffrey, why is he still a thing? So there might be some room there to kind of, churn the waiver wire a little bit, look for somebody else.
Is he signed on the team? I don't think he's on the team.
It's the same thing with Bell, right? These free agents, I just don't see the upside. I think which is, this team can do easy, quick fix things to improve that running back depth, right? Get rid of Bell, get rid of Jeffrey, pick up a couple running backs that are on rosters or kind of the second, third, fourth guys on depth charts that may have a chance. That's how I mean.
Holding out because Bell's going to sign somewhere. Do you guys not see that happening?
No, I think if he is the talent in theory, I just think some of the he was making too about Reed. Like, I feel like his attitude has kind of left him real, but not even just Reed, like the whole attitude, like the holdout. And I just think like, I don't know that any team wants to deal with the headache, right? Like, which coaching staff is saying that's the missing piece? Like, that's the personality. Yeah. So I don't see him signing. That's I do agree with you though. I'm more on your side than Hamid that if he does sign, he does have the talent that he will contribute. But there again, like, give me a running back that's on a depth chart right now. Like, cut Jeffrey, cut Bell, extra running backs you have, because I think this team needs much wide receiver depth. Like, no, because I love the wide receiver 5 on this Landry. He might be the wide receiver 1 on the Browns. It might still be Beckham, but it could also be Landry. And he provides a different skill set to Lockett. Lockett, super high ceiling, boom, bust. Landry, the high floor. So I think this wide receiver room's a little older. Like, there's less young guys, but I think it's also it's a really solid room of 5 guys that can really contribute right now. Like, this team really does seem like it's a contender now and compete for it. So ride it out with this wide receiver room. Hamid, I get what you're saying a bit. Like, this might be like, you have the ammunition at wide receiver to maybe improve at quarterback or tight end. You really don't have the depth at running back to give up one of those guys to fix a quarterback position, right? Whereas might, but I also might go with Doc's answer, or just say this is a deep wide receiver attack and roll at the quarterback position. Like, I can kind of get both arguments. I think if you're going to upgrade the quarterback, go high, go like for a top 6, top 7 quarterback. Otherwise, like, I'm not really going out to get a Baker Mayfield, right? I'm not going to pay up to get Baker. Like, if I'm going to pay up, give me a Dak, give me a Herbert type thing, right? So I'm not going to make a massive improvement. I say ride with it with between Tua and Carr, thinking that like between those solid season.
And here's a little wrench for you guys. I was just looking up a few numbers, and because you guys know I love data, right? Oh yeah. DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, so he's in Dynasty ranked wide receivers. He's my wide receiver 7 overall in Dynasty. Last year he had 6 touchdowns, the fewest he's had since 2016. Half his games he's finished outside wide receiver 1 last year. He was wide receiver 18 or worse in the rest of those games. He's finished 1 game outside wide receiver 18. The rest of the games, which was half of them, was wide receiver 32 or worse. He had 9 such games the year prior to that. And he was 7th in the league last year amongst all wide receivers in red zone targets. I'm not saying, now, first of all, let me start off by saying this. Hopkins is not falling off a cliff. He doesn't suck. I still have him as in my wide receiver 1 rankings. He's wide receiver 7, like I said. But all I'm saying is he's not as consistent as the data shows that he's not as consistent as other wide receivers. So call me crazy, but it wouldn't be a bad idea just to start at least entertaining Hopkins as a player to maybe move to get the value that you need to address your wide receiver that you're going to lose with Hopkins and get a running back as well to get some depth over there. That's what I think this owner should do.
And I'm usually not one to kind of go down that road, but the other thing that could make that a little bit easier is just looking at the roster. Rashard Higgins and Jarvis Landry. If OBJ gets hurt, then both of these guys get a huge bump, and that could soften the blow even further and increase your depth. But I like that, Hamid. DeAndre Hopkins got a lot of helium, and he could certainly bring back a really nice return. And it's not going to gut this roster. You're not going to be on razor thin. Like if you were to trade like Najee Harris, now it's like you're really razor thin at running back. Like if you were to lose Hopkins, or even if Hopkins evaporated, this roster still wide receiver wise looks really good. So getting something back for that, or filling some other need, or making an upgrade somewhere could be really beneficial. So I really like that.
All right. So Kyle, you're on mute, my man.
Sorry. I was just so baffled by how low I had Hopkins ranked in my Dynasty rankings. I have him at wide receiver 14 in Dynasty. Wow. So I was almost a little surprised that it was that low.
It feels like ageism because he's 29.
Now I had him below DJ Moore, Godwin, McLaurin. I don't know.
I feel like Doc felt about my Josh Jacobs rankings right now.
but I also think, it's half the fall 28. I kind of feel you, Hamid. Like the lack of quarterback efficiency dropping from Watson, and it hurt his touchdowns. So I think Hopkins is the true elite wide receiver 1. I think maybe those days are gone. Maybe 14 is a little harsh. I'll relook at that again. It does belong still as a top 12 receiver. Yeah,
14 is
13 and 15.
Changing minds.
Keenan Allen and Mike Evans. 13.
So they're right there. All three of them are right there. Yeah. Okay.
I have
DJ Moore at 12, right? So like DJ Moore is kind of the one I have ahead of all of them. Just maybe it is the ageism there.
Definitely ageism. I know how you roll, my friend.
You're gonna hate me. I have DJ Moore 19. I have Evans 21.
Well, that's interesting.
You see, I'm not on receivers to hate that. I think that's a massive tier where like that's like I can get that. Like if you don't like Sam Darnold, like it's a downgrade for Moore, especially if Darnold lead more to Robbie Anderson. So like I'm assuming you've got guys like T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk ahead of them.
I have T. Higgins wide receiver 26, Ayuk wide receiver 20. I love Ayuk.
Okay.
I think I have Ayuk.
I've got 21 for Ayuk, so I'm there with you. I've got him at wide receiver 21. So,
and I think that's Ayuk. I think that's Ayuk's floor. Go ahead, Doc. What are you saying?
You publish these, right? I want to see. I wonder if there's somebody that like he's got like complete like spicy hot take in like the top 20. Like we're gonna find out like Darius Slayton's like 17 or something like that. Like something's got to be going on there. I can't wait. I want to see these.
Yep, they are published, and you can find them right online. All right, so let's move on to
Fantasy Pros, right?
And Fantasy Pros, that is correct.
My Fantasy Pro, okay. Well, I'm definitely gonna check them out.
All right, so the tight ends, he has Rob Gronkowski, Trey Burton, and Hayden Hurst. Out of these running tight ends, of course, I mean, not the greatest tight ends to have, but Hurst has some interesting appeal out of all three of these. From a dynasty standpoint, I think Rob Gronkowski might be on his last year, and he's not dependable week in and week out. Burton, we don't have to talk about him. But I think Hurst is the one here who is very interesting value. Doc, I see you nodding your head. You want to take this?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this. Like, I think he's kind of been the forgotten man with like all the Kyle Pitts hype that's been going on. I still think he's going to have a significant role in this offense. I think they're going to score a bunch. And there's a lot of vacated targets from Julio leaving. And I don't think Kyle Pitts is going to absorb that. I think my man Russell Gage is also underrated in this offense. And Kyle Pitts, if he gets off to a slow start, that kind of bumps. If you're not on the Kyle Pitts hype train, then guys like Hurst and Gage are the guys you should be looking at because they're probably going to benefit the most. So that's where I'm at with it. And with Gronk, I think, he's what he is now. He's a touchdown-dependent tight end, but he's on an offense that's going to score a lot of touchdowns, and we know his quarterback loves him to pieces. So he definitely has week-to-week tight end one upside. So I think you're right. I think you're good just playing it out here. Trey Burton is a free agent now. I don't know if he's going to sign or what the deal is, but that's the way I see it. I'm totally fine with these guys.
I would actually, to me, when I look through this team, like to me, the two biggest sells in my mind of like, I'm going to try and get rid of these guys at all costs. One was Derek Carr. The other one's, like you said, this might be his last leg. And I think the success for Pitts is going to depend on how much he's playing on the outside. Get him away from being an inline tight end, which opens up for Hurst to just be that like that's going to play a ton of snaps from the tight end position and get all those receptions from Matt Ryan. Like it wouldn't shock me if Hurst catches more passes than Russell Gage. I think the obvious thing would be Gage more passes than Hurst, but being pretty close, especially if Pitts really is being used so much as a receiver, almost like a de facto wide receiver too. I think it helps Hurst, to be honest. So I'm fine with going as Hurst as my number one tight end. Like similar thinking to quarterback. If this team's so deep at running back, wide receiver, you can make up for that with like it makes up for the lack at tight end. We'll say if Hurst is your starter, because again, I'd look to sell Gronk as soon as you can, maybe to someone who's got Tom Brady on their team that they can get extra upside. If you can sell him for a young tight end, I know we all love Jonnu Smith here. But like I really like Adam Troutman even more. Like if you can get Gronk, give up Gronk and a pick to get Adam Troutman, I like doing that right now because as much as it's kind of chaos in New Orleans right now, Troutman might end up being alpha for them. I mean, I guess it's always going to be Alvin Kamara, but like who's going to be that other guy to catch Troutman? So maybe like look to sell Gronk that way, or just straight up for picks and use those picks to buy whatever player you want. So Gronk's a sell to me.
Speaking of Adam Troutman, I'm actually looking at my tight end rankings right now as we speak. I have Troutman. I actually like the idea of getting this team. I think you can get Adam Troutman right now for a rookie pick, a 3rd round pick.
I don't know about that, my man. Like he's getting a lot. He's getting a lot.
Plus a second.
Yeah, I think he's gonna.
If it's a second, I'm not. That's not the price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't people pay a Troutman price for a second. Now for Higbee, I pay a second. I think Higbee.
It's funny. I've got spot's difference for me, right? I've got Higbee at 8 and Troutman at 10. So I don't know. I know Gerson was also pretty high. I think he also had him at 9 or 10 in his Dynasty tight end ranking. So I know Gerson is also pretty high.
He doesn't like Higbee. He was down on Higbee, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I'd be fine, honestly, with this team. I'm paying a second for both because I think this team can win, and I think Troutman or Higbee both provide upside at that tight end 1 position. I'd much rather start either of them than either Hurst or Gronk. And I think Burton's another guy. I honestly wouldn't even necessarily pick up a tight end if there's no one great out there. I'd just pick up another running back, right? Like that. Yeah. So Burton's kind of a clear one there. But again, shop Gronk and see what the price is. I mean, if it's like no at all, maybe you ride out the production this year.
I have Higbee ranked my tight end 6 in Dynasty, so I'm very bullish on Higbee. And I think
higher than me. Oh, really?
I have him at 6. Who do you have him at 8? I knocked Mark Andrews down. I have Andrews at 7.
Oh, okay. I've got
Andrews at 5. Hawkins, I cannot knock Hawkinson out of the top 5. I can't knock him out of the top 5. So it's
got him at 4 for me.
Yeah. So with that, guys, now we come to the end of the show where we just give our rankings 1 to 10. 1 being the least, 10 being hell yeah, I want this team. What number would you give this team on a scale from 1 to 10? Doc, I'll start off with you here. From 1 to 10, what would you give this team?
I'll be brief. I like this. I like this team. I like the way it's structured, and he's got some potential for things to break right with injuries and other things. It's an 8 for me. And I really, I'm usually not big on like the trades before the season, but Hamid, I got to give you credit. I really like your take on DeAndre Hopkins and how you could kind of dangle that blue chip out there and really fill some needs if you need to. And take it from there. And I think he's set up pretty decent for the future as well. I think some of these wide receivers are going to age well. His running back core is young. Quarterback, he's got a lot of lottery tickets, and he just needs one of them to hit. And tight end, he's got some guys, he can fill needs as needed. So there you go. 8 for me.
Kyle, what's your number?
So I'm trying to think back. Like I remember last week, I think it was same thing. Doc last week, he gave the team an 8, and I gave them I think I might come to regret that. I think that team last week was more of an 8 than this team. Like whereas I'm saying firmly
7.5 after further review, you made it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say this is a 7 for me because I think as much as I do love this running back room and it's a pretty decent wide receiver room, I don't like the tight ends or the quarterbacks. So maybe the team's not made in my liking. I'm still even in single quarterback. I'm those elite top tier quarterbacks. So I think the lack of that is maybe pushing down a little bit. I don't really love any quarterback room, so it's a 7 for me.
Okay.
All right, guys, you're not going to be happy with my ranking in that case because my ranking is a 6 for this team. Okay. And I think you guys can guess why. The running backs, of course. Given how low I have his running backs, I think this team needs to improve at running back. And I also don't think in a 12-command league, you can do better than Tua being your number 1 quarterback and you're starting quarterback, or Derek Carr for that matter. So I think this team needs to improve in quarterback, but I would say that's the least of his priorities. I would say this team needs to improve at running back, and they can get more depth. But of course, I recommended, try to get value for DeAndre Hopkins. Having said that, of course, that gives the overall ranking for the show to this team of a 7. So this overall ranking of this team with the panel deciding ultimately, that's a 7. So with that said, guys, the show was great. Quite passionate, I gotta say. I can't wait for next Thursday now when we talk about another team and discuss our rankings some more. And we get to talk about some football, guys. Next Thursday. I know. We're going to talk about preseason week 1, fellas. Again, guys, this was great. You can find, of course, Kyle on Twitter and also going for 2. Kyle, I'll let you take it away with goodbyes.
Yeah, so at SenraSays, that's my Twitter account. You can follow me there. We tweeting out a lot. Tweeting out the CFS stuff. Going for Two Live Network. I host the press coverage as well as this. Look for stuff in season. Doc and I'll be on. That'll be great. I know Hamid's got Sunday mornings, Thursday nights as well in season before games. So check out that and check out the great stuff. Goingfor2.com/store, global.com/goingfor2. It's all the Viridian Global gear, the hat, the great shirts. This week I'm wearing Radiohead.
Nice.
So representing all the Scott
Radiohead,
Fishbowl shirts. Yeah. So I guess quick question between the 3 shirts I've worn: Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Radiohead. What's your favorite band, guys, out of 3?
Oh, favorite band or favorite shirt? I definitely like the Pink Floyd shirt. That one was my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's definitely my favorite shirt of the 3. Partially, Pink Floyd's also my favorite too. So that's.
I was at Pink Floyd as well. Doc, where can the folks find you, and tell us a little bit about your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at TFSDoc on Twitter. Also on the Going for Two and Going for Two Live Network. Next week, on August 11th, I'm going to be on the flagship Armchair Fantasy Show with the big boss man, Jeff Lambert, Ryan Serfoss, and Stefania Bell from ESPN. So we're going to be talking injuries. We're going to be doing mock drafts. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do injury analysis for Going for Two. And so please reach out if there's questions as these injuries start coming out. Reach out to me. If you got time to send me a question, I got time to send you a response. If you really want to get good at injury analysis before the season starts, check out my book on Amazon. It's about injury analysis for all sports, not just football. Football, baseball is the focus, but it applies to all sports. I teach you about how to read between the lines of major media reports, injury timetables, how to create your own fantasy injury calculator when guys get injured. The name of the book is Injuries Suck, but Your Fantasy Team Doesn't Have to. Available on Amazon, ebook, paperback. Go check it out. I'll put a link in the description and in the comments so you can find it easily. There is also a link on my Twitter page. So looking forward to hearing from you guys out there as injuries start happening. Always a pleasure to see you guys and do the show. Looking forward to getting some actual football and really looking forward to being on the flagship show next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. So that's where I'm at with things.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I can't wait. I can't wait to that show with Stefania Bell. It's going to be a great show, man. I, of course, the host, Hamid Sandhu. You can find me on Twitter at FFJunkie85. And to Doc's point, I reach out to him all the time for fantasy baseball questions that I do have. He is always available, midnight, 1 o'clock. Shoot him a Twitter note. He will respond to you. I promise you. He's great at fantasy baseball and his analytics with football and his medical opinion and advice has turned out to be pretty good. Just about, remember the pitcher for Pittsburgh, Ligament? You were right about him. I should have listened. Should have touched him. But hey, all right, guys, this was great. I'll see you guys again next Thursday, and we'll break down another roster and talk preseason week 1.
All right, guys. Enjoy the game. Have a good night.
Dynasty.